At the end of the day, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about what you've done with those accomplishments. It's about who you've lifted up, who you've made better. It's about what you've given back. Denzel Washington. Welcome to Inspire Vision. Our sole purpose is to elevate the lives of others and to inspire you to do the same.
Stanley, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm excited to having you here. And as we were talking just before we started the recording, what amazes me is you're up at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's 4 o'clock here in the afternoon for me in Thailand, and I'm waiting to hear that whole story. But what I'd love for you to do is to kind of share with the audience who you are, your background briefly, and then what brought you to this point. You've written many books now, and you've got an incredible thing you've put together called The Way of Excellence. I'd love to hear your story, your journey.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. I was 8 years old. Boy at school. The lady, Mrs. Cleary from the front office, still remember her name, comes to the door of the schoolroom and says, "Stanley, you rode your bike to school, didn't you?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Your father called and he said he needs you at home. It's okay for you to leave. Go ride your bike home." Well, wondering what's going on. Got on my bike, got about a block or two away from the school, fell off my bike. I sat there and I got up and I had immediately realized what happened. My mother had died. Don't know how I knew it, but I knew it. I turned stone cold, got back on my bike, rode home. Got home, everyone was crying at home. I'm just sitting there stone cold. My father's busy planning the funeral. We're Jewish. We bury people very quickly after they die.
Yeah.
A lot of times the next day. He's sitting there planning it. He puts me in his bedroom. He says, "You can sit in here and cry," and he shuts the door. Nobody came and talked to me. Nobody did anything, whatever. I was on my own. Needless to say, I didn't cry. Next day, we're at the funeral home getting ready to go drive to the cemetery. I insisted that they open the casket to let me see that my mother was in there. I started screaming and insisted it. They opened it up. They let me see her. They closed it back up. We went to the cemetery, buried her, didn't cry. For the next month or two, I had nightmares or dreams, depending on what you want to call it, that she got up in the middle of the night and she walked home from the cemetery. But nothing happened. I'm living with my father, who's massively obese, and we both just ate ourselves into oblivion. Just more food, and more food. And if you look at my pictures from that time, I just started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Most people, when they're married, they say they'd love to be as small as they were when they got married. Well, I'm smaller than I was when I was 13 years old.
Wow.
And I don't know if that's a good thing or a crazy thing or both, but I am. And I recently found some pictures to prove it. That's the sad part. So going through this whole thing, go through high school, not as popular as I could. I was popular, but not as popular as I could be because I was big. Went to college, same story. Joined a fraternity. My senior year of college, I lost a bunch of weight, probably 75, 80 pounds, whatever like that. And started becoming more popular. But then that summer, I was on a car trip with some friends of mine, and they had cookies in the back seat. And I ate the cookies, went right back to my old habits. Boom, weight came back on, plus more. So all the hard work that I did was only temporary. So lesson number one, temporary change yields temporary results. Permanent change yields permanent results. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more a little bit later.
Okay.
So if you want to change your life permanently, you have to make permanent changes. But we'll get back to that.
Yeah, we'll get into that habit
So
situation.
I start moving on. Graduated from college, became a CPA. That's a certified public accountant here in the United States, chartered accountant elsewhere in the world. Um, Working with one of my older brothers. One day, out of the blue, we get in an argument, and as brothers tend to do, they're screaming at each other. He sits there and he says, "You know what you ought to do?" And I said, "What?" He says, "You ought to go to law school." And I said, "That's a good idea. I think I'll do that." So I signed up for law school. It took me 4 years because I went at night. I became a lawyer. So lesson from that story is you could be arguing with someone who's totally full of crap, because believe me, he was. Yet you should be listening to what they say, because some words of wisdom may accidentally come out of their mouth that you should hear.
Amen.
Yeah. So, so that changed my life, and that was a good thing. Thank you, bro. I appreciate it. So there. So once again, when I got to my last year in law school, that was when I maxed out. I was about 367 pounds, as you can see in this picture.
Yeah, wow.
I was a big boy. That's me today on the other side. So my senior year, my last year in law school, I started losing weight again. I joined Weight Watchers. I actually lost 100 pounds. I got my 100-pound ribbon. But once again, afterward, I got small enough to get women interested in me. I could start dating. And but I got married. Started going back to my old habits again, as guys often do when they get married. And the weight started coming back on. But this time, only 60 pounds of the 100 pounds came back on. And you know why? Because there was one permanent change that I made. Remember that? Temporary change, temporary results. Permanent change, permanent results. The
Right.
permanent change I made was I used to, believe it or not, get up in the middle of the night and eat full meals in the middle of the night.
Wow.
I mean, a full-blown meal. I'm not talking about a snack. I'm talking about a full-blown meal. So when I was losing that weight through Weight Watchers, I accidentally learned something. I came up with a thing. I would wake up ready to go eat a meal. At the time, I was eating a lot of those frozen dinners, Weight Watchers frozen dinners with the good-looking picture on the front.
Right.
See, what I thought was healthy back then is not what I think is healthy now. I think those things are not good for you. They're loaded with sodium. All they are is portion control. That's what they are.
Right.
So I would pull the package out of the freezer. I would look at the picture on the cover. I would imagine what it tasted like, because I'd eaten tons of them. I knew what it tasted like. I said, that was delicious. Yummy, yummy, yummy. And I put it back in the freezer, and then I went back to sleep. So by doing that, I broke myself of the habit of eating a meal in the middle of the night. That not eating a meal in the middle of the night was good for a 40-pound permanent weight loss right there. Right there. That was a permanent habit. So fast forward, I'm getting ready to turn 50 years old. This was almost exactly 17 years ago. February 1st, 2009. I remember the day. I call that my rebirth day. I'm getting ready to celebrate my 17th rebirth day in 5 days. So at the time, it was 4 months before my 50th birthday. That's a time when a lot of men, were thinking about their future, their life, and a lot of women too. I weighed 320 pounds at the time. I wasn't my full 367, but I weighed 320. Hadn't had a heart attack yet. Had not had a stroke yet. Was not on diabetes medication yet, but I probably should have been. I wasn't on high blood pressure medication yet, but I probably should have been. And I was doing a lot of thinking. And I said to myself, where am I going to be in 5 years if I keep doing what I'm doing right now? Would you care to guess what the answer was?
Probably not here anymore on the earth.
Dead.
Yeah.
And guess what? I did not want to be dead. So I said, turned to my wife and I said, I'm done. I'm cooked. No more. Can I use colorful language here?
No.
Okay. Then I won't. Okay. I said, I'm not going to tolerate this kind of thing in my life anymore. So I'm done. I'm cooked. I'm going to learn to start eating better right now. Not tomorrow, not last week, not next month, not next week, now. I'm going to start walking every day or trying to walk every day if my body's capable of doing it right now. And the reason why I picked walking was I figured you didn't need special equipment. You could do it almost anywhere. I figured it would beat my body up less than other forms of exercise. So I said, I'm working towards starting to walk every day right now. Now, little did I know how prophetic my words were back then. Because when I tell you where I'm at today versus where I was then, I hit it right on the money. So right away, I started doing 3 things. See, not only did I admit to myself where I was, I took action on it. You know, because that was not the first time in my life I said that I'm killing myself by overeating. But it was the first time I did something about it permanently. So first thing I did was I quit drinking alcohol. I won't say I was an alcoholic, but I will say I was drinking too much. And I will say it was not serving me. I was serving it. So I took my bottle of scotch I had, poured it down the toilet, flushed it. That was it, done. Haven't touched it since, 17 years. Okay. I was drinking 2-liter bottles of soda. I was drinking 3 of those a day. They were diet caffeine free, so surely those must have been good, right?
Right.
No, they weren't. Like I said, what I thought was healthy back then is not what I think is healthy now. So no more. I haven't had one of those in 17 years. And I also quit eating beef and pork, red meat. And that was an accomplishment for me when you consider that my father was a butcher and I grew up in a house with unlimited free meat. And for me to quit eating beef and pork, that was something. But I quit doing those and I started walking. In the beginning, I had trouble. I could only walk 2 or 3 blocks. So I did a lot of my walking. I would go to a pool. And that was when I started exercising in the middle of the night because the only time the pool was free and available for me to walk was the middle of the night. So I would go to the gym in the middle of the night and I would walk because I started walking for hours, just back and forth, and I would listen to audiobooks. I put on headphones, I made them waterproof, and I could listen. And I started learning things and thinking about things and just spending time walking. Then, as I was approaching my 50th birthday, I decided I was going to start walking outside. By then, I'd lost almost 50 pounds, 50 more pounds. So I was down to about 270, something like that. And I started walking outside. That went on for, another 4.5 years or so. Then I decided I was going to make another push. I was ready. And so that next push was I gave up chicken and turkey. So essentially I went vegetarian because my research indicated that was better for my health. That would be better for me. And I kept walking and I lost more weight. Now, one thing I want to emphasize about this whole thing, this was not a straight line process. I had good days. I had bad days. I had days where I did great. I had days where I messed up. But the important thing is I got started and I kept going. Every time I messed up, every time I fell off the wagon, I got back on the wagon, I hopped right back on, and I kept going. So that's something to remember. You know, you don't have to be perfect. You are not going to be perfect. We are human beings. Remember that. We're not going to be perfect. So fast forward another 5 years. My weight was down to about 180, 190, 200. It kept fluctuating, 180, 190, 200. And it wasn't stable. And yet I was walking 10 to 15 miles every day by then. And I said, I'm walking 15 miles a day and I can't get my weight below 180. I said, I'm doing something wrong here. So another lesson I learned was you cannot exercise your way out of a poor diet. Nutrition is extremely important. It's all important. So I analyzed what I was eating and I said, I'm going to give up bread, butter, cheese, and ice cream. In other words, dairy. And I did that. Essentially, I became full-blown vegan. And guess what happened? Not only did my weight get below 150, I lost 50 pounds in like 5 minutes. I mean, I melted, literally. And so I said, okay, this is the way I should be eating. This is the way I need to be eating. So I made a commitment to myself at that time. And once again, it was not a straight line. I was eating, you can be vegan and eat junk food. Oreos are vegan.
Yeah.
You can eat processed foods that are vegan. And then you can eat whole foods, plant-based foods, real stuff. That's also vegan. That's what you need to be doing. That's where the power is. So I made a commitment that no unhealthy food was going to enter my mouth. Full-blown commitment. No unhealthy food was going to enter my mouth. And I also made a commitment that I said, my diet, what I eat is not just my food. It's the thoughts that go into my head. It's the things I surround myself with, the people I surround myself with. I made a commitment to do the best I could to make sure that no unhealthy thoughts would enter my head. I would only hang around people who were good for me. And all this kind of, so you wind up getting rid of some people in your life.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, and I did that. And that's okay. I'm better off for that. So I started doing that and I got healthier and healthier and healthier. Now, today, almost 17 years into the process, I'm gonna tell you where I'm at, and then I'm gonna tell you what I learned along the way and what I did as a result of what I learned. I'm down to about 145 pounds. No drugs, no surgeries. I'm 66. I feel like I'm 35, if not younger. Except I was not in this good a shape when I was 35. So in many ways, I'm better. So when a lot of people say midlife, second half of your life, I don't like that.
No.
I mean, okay, I think that is negative thinking. I think that is, as Zig Ziglar used to say, I think that's stinking thinking. Now, like I said, I'm 66. I don't know if my life is half over or not, but I plan on living. I plan on living forever or dying trying, and that's why I take care of myself. So I don't necessarily think I'm at the midpoint of my life, and I don't care. I just know I could retire today. I'm debt free. I have money in the bank. I've had a successful career. I could quit right now and take it easy for the rest of my life.
So I'm going to
But
stop you. I'm going to
okay,
stop you there for a minute because I have some questions for you along the
go
way.
ahead.
Number one, you were walking 15 miles a day. You were doing all of this stuff. When were you working?
Okay. First of all, I work from home. That
Okay.
makes it easier. I work for myself. I have clients, but I work for myself. I have, I'm an attorney, so my work does not necessarily require me to be physically at an office. It doesn't require me to, meet with patients at the office to operate on them and everything. Plus, I came up with a little thing where I put a computer on my treadmill so I could walk. Okay, I told you before we got on this podcast, I woke up at midnight. That's my regular daily routine. I should have been a Marine. Um, I've been on the treadmill for an hour and a half. I had my computer. I was working on the computer while I was walking at 2.25 miles an hour. I don't walk fast, but I keep going. So I'm getting work done. I'm multitasking.
Right.
And I'm fortunate that I can do that. And a lot of my work is if I'm walking outside, as long as I have my phone with me, I can get my emails, I can get my texts, I can make phone calls, I can do a lot of things. If I come up with ideas, I can put them in my phone and they're there for me. When I come back, all my notes, all my system, it's all digitized. So if I need something when I'm out and about, I can go on my phone, I can get it. So a lot of it is organization. So that's how I do that. Does that sort of answer the question?
Well, it does kind of, but I think of a bunch of people that are working regular jobs. They've got to be at the office and so forth. And, they don't get up at 2 in the morning or midnight to exercise.
They
How,
don't have to. They do not have to.
I get that. I get that. I'm just joking with you. But how do you help people or how do you advise them when they really are working 8 to 10 hours a day in
Okay.
an office? How on earth are they able to do some of the things that you were able to do?
First of all, you don't have to do what I do. Part of what I do is to demonstrate that ties into what I've learned out of this thing. It is to demonstrate what it is possible for human beings to do. Part of what I'm doing is a test to see what I can do. Is it nuts that I walk as much as I do? Yeah, it is. It's nuts, but it's also incredibly empowering. A lot of what I do is I do it because I can.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
why. I want to see what I can do. I can't. Okay.
Okay. So the next question I have, because you have become a vegan, pure vegan.
Yes.
And I know that I've had a doctor that I've worked with, a nutritional doctor, and he is an MD, and he has pushed me towards veganism. And I've done that for a while. And then I recognized that I'm not getting sufficient protein for my muscles to continue to build.
Okay.
And I know a lot of people are on the keto diet where they're eating, meat and so on. And I actually have moved towards that for the last couple of weeks to see how that goes, because I found that just being vegan changed a couple of blood tests that were not good. And also I found that I was losing muscle tone and muscle even though I'm working out and doing some of those
Okay.
things. And so, how do you help people to understand? And again, it may be your particular body and your particular metabolism that suggests veganism is best for you, whereas other people will be on the air swearing that the keto diet or the Mediterranean diet is absolutely the way to go. So,
Okay.
how do you share that with the audience?
Okay. First of all, yes, people have different bodies. I had my physical 2 weeks ago, and I did my blood work numbers, and my blood work numbers are off the charts. Fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, 30-year-olds wish they had my blood work numbers. Now, a lot of it is learning to how to get the protein. Okay, first of all, I'll give you some examples. People ask me, do I eat rice? You live in Thailand. I'm assuming you eat rice.
I eat rice, yes.
Okay. Is it white rice?
No,
What type of rice? Brown rice?
it's brown rice. Long,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Brown rice is better, much better than white rice.
yeah.
However, there are other grains: spelt, barley, kamut, emmer, rye. I make a mix of 7 different grains, and I cook those and I eat those. I stop eating rice and eat those. I did a nutritional analysis on that, and I can send you the recipe. The nutritional analysis, it has almost twice the protein of brown rice.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
that's not a lot of protein. I mean,
no, it is a lot. It's a lot more. Okay. Okay. Example. Another example. I made myself a tomato soup. Okay. Tomatoes. In the tomato soup, I did this in the pressure cooker. I threw in beans, a lot of beans, loaded with protein. I threw in a pound of tofu in there as well, cooked it. Then I put it in the blender and blended it all up into a soup, and you sit there and eat that. I made a protein-packed tomato soup. I make other things I make my own homemade nut butters loaded with protein. There are ways to get protein. And also, protein for men as they get older is important because you do want to maintain your muscle tone. I understand that. And it's true. But as a general rule, what a lot of people have, the problems in their diet is not that they're not getting enough protein, it's they're not getting enough fiber.
mhm.
And that's one of the problems I have with the keto diet. I had a woman who I was working with who lives in New Zealand, pre-diabetic. Her doctor put her on the keto diet. She felt miserable, had no energy, and was chronically constipated. She started eating oatmeal for breakfast with fruit, nuts, seeds, lots of other grains and stuff. Guess what? Her blood sugar went down, no longer constipated, started losing weight, felt much better. It's all there. There is no one solution for anybody. However, I will tell you, I've done the keto diet many times. I did it when it was known as the Atkins diet
Yeah,
many years ago. You're old enough to know that.
yes.
Okay. Now, I'm not a fan of it because I think it's hard on the kidneys. And I think you wind up eating a lot of unhealthy foods in the name of saying that it's, protein only. Like, for example, when I did keto diet, bacon was my friend. And I'm sorry, bacon's delicious. I love it more, as much as anybody. But eating a lot of nothing but bacon is not good for you. I'm sorry. And it just, those are my opinions. I'm not a doctor, but I've worked with many people and I know what I have experienced and I know what I have seen. And I mean, there are other benefits as well. Like, since the day I turned vegetarian, I have been sick one time in 12 years.
Wow.
And that was for 3 days, including COVID. My wife caught COVID in the airport, brought it home into the house. And yes, I had the vaccine at the time, and for 2 days, I felt like I was only 75%, but I still did my walking and my body threw it off.
Well, and that's amazing. And I want to get on to actually, because you have written what now? 6 books? Is it 5 or 6 books?
7.
7 books. Okay.
Well, many books, but 7 in the series of the Way of Excellence.
And you've developed this whole concept of the way of excellence. And as I've looked at it and printed it out, it's just like, holy, yeah, that's what I have in front of me right now. It's like this has to be an attorney or an accountant that did this because that's
It was very anal,
yeah, it's
extremely
very,
anal.
very
Hey,
anal.
here, look at the color. Everything's color coded.
Oh, I
Everything
know.
lines up.
When I
Yeah.
was first looking at it, and I'm thinking, okay, this guy is an attorney or an accountant or something. He is definitely there. But you created this why? Because based on your experience, you felt like this then could help other people.
Yes. Okay. I'm a systems thinker. My entire career has been both as a CPA and a lawyer. How do you take complicated things and make them simple? As opposed to my wife, who does the exact opposite. She takes simple things and makes them
Make them
complicated.
complicated.
But that's okay. That's so we make a good match. But I've been paid to make complicated things simple. So I sat there as I was doing this, and you're doing all this. Something happens when you do all this walking that I do. You meet some very interesting people. And would you care to guess who the most interesting person you meet is on your journey?
Yourself.
Yes, yourself. So I did a lot of thinking, and I said, I've been a perfectionist. I was a 367-pound perfectionist. Tell me that's not an oxymoron. Little hypocritical there. I used to complain that people weren't as perfect as me. All I was walking around at 367 pounds.
So let's talk about perfection for a minute, because as you mentioned at the beginning, you're Jewish.
Yes.
I'm Christian, and I've looked at this concept of perfectionism, and particularly as it is in the Bible, and realized that it's been mistranslated terribly. And because of that, we have developed this concept of perfectionism. But you probably have never done that. So I agree. The goal is not perfection, the goal is excellence. So how do other people who may not be of a particular faith develop this concept of perfectionism and that we have to be perfect?
I think we're taught that from the minute we're born. Every time we do something right, we're praised. Every time we do something wrong, we're punished or not praised or scolded or whatever. That's what we're taught. And instead, wise parents, I watch a lot of different parenting styles. Wise parents let their kids fail.
Yeah.
They let them mess up because that's how they learn. My same older brother, when he had his first son, I remember he had him climbing a wall or something like that. And I said, "You sure you want to do that? He might fall off." He said, "Good. If he falls off, he'll learn. He'll learn how not to fall off." Yeah. So mistakes, mistakes are proof that you're trying.
Yeah.
I said before, you're gonna mess up. You know, realize that. Love yourself anyway.
Well, and so you've got this whole thing. I've got this in front of me, the way of you, and I love how you've done this circle, and you've got the body, the spirit, and the mind. And yes, and you talk about finding you, becoming you, and optimizing you. And I want to get into this for a minute because you talk about really bringing the mind, the body, the spirit together, integrating them together, and how that becomes a real key to wholeness and peace. Could you share with the audience that concept? And in each one of those, when we get, you've already talked about the body, obviously, and really being as healthy as you possibly can. But let's get into the spirit and let's get into the mind.
Okay. First of all, here's the circle again.
Yeah,
You notice it's like the typical Chinese yin yang, except it's three parts instead of two.
right.
The red is the mind, the blue is the body, the green is the spirit. If you notice, there's a little person in the middle of the thing. That's where you want to be. Your goal is to be balanced in the middle of all these things. Now, if you look inside the mind, there's a yin yang that's part blue and part green. That's body and spirit. If If you look in the blue, there's a red and green yin yang. That's part mind and spirit. Then you look at the spirit, it's blue and red. That's body and mind. That's because everything works together. Here's how it works. Your mind feeds your body and your spirit. Your body feeds your mind and your spirit. Your spirit feeds your mind and your body. They are all connected. See, my problem was I was out of whack. I was all mind. My profession was all mind, sitting at a desk, thinking, creating. And I was totally neglecting my body, and it was affecting my spirit. It was making me miserable. Then when I started getting my body together, I actually became out of whack with my mind and my spirit. I exceeded it. I found it more difficult to want to focus on my work. I didn't want to work. I was having too much fun doing these other things. And then I ultimately brought it all back into balance. And it's not a perfect thing. It goes back and forth, left, right, up, down, forward, backwards, sideways, all those things. But it's working on bringing everything into balance. And what is balance? First of all, balance is not something you find. You don't go to a class and find balance. You don't go to a Tai Chi class and find balance. You create balance. I heard a definition many years ago that I've incorporated into my work. Balance is identifying what's deficient and increasing it, identifying what's excessive and decreasing it.
Okay, so you're talking about the body, and we've got that whole part. In fact, we spent most of the time on that. But let's look at the spirit and the mind. And we talk about mind, mindfulness, and so forth. Spirit, I think so many people get so confused when we start talking about spirit and so on and so forth.
Yes, that's because it's amorphous. It's not something you can't look at it and go, that's the spirit.
Right.
To me, I think of it as my energy.
Okay.
Okay. I have abundant energy. It is 2:38 in the morning right now, and I'm ready to roll. Most of the world where I'm at is sleeping right now. And that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But I've made it a habit that I like to say, I want to be up conquering the world while everyone else is sleeping. Now, it's your energy. Think of it that way. That makes it easier. Do you have energy to do what you want to do, or are you walking around, all the time? That is why I have identified along the way, I've taken notes all along the way. Every mistake you could make, I've made it 10 times, if not more. But as I slowly figured out things that worked for me, those were the things that I incorporated. Now, I want to clarify right now, people do not necessarily have to do what I do. The world already has one Stanley. It doesn't need another one. But the world does need the best you. And okay, you talked about the way of you. I break this whole journey down into 3 parts. First part is finding you. February 1st, 2009, when I said enough is enough, and I embarked on this journey, that I was finding myself. Then over the next 10 years or so, I became myself. I changed my identity. I went from this to this. These are the same people, but they are not the same people.
Right. And folks, he's showing a picture of himself when he was tremendously overweight and now that he's thin.
Yeah. And so I became a new person. I became myself. Now I am in that 3rd phase. I call it Optimize Stanley. In my notes, I've got it's in there. Optimize Stanley. It's a project. How do I take where I am at and how do I optimize it? How do I make it even better? Because that is the beauty of excellence. No matter how good you are, there's always a level higher. There's always a level deeper. You can always work toward getting better. But there's one thing I want to introduce into here. Don't be a perfectionist. Be what I call a good enoughist. Realize that good enough is good enough. Doesn't mean you can't get better. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try to get better. But if you're doing good enough, wonderful.
Amen.
Appreciate
Amen
that.
to that. Amen to that.
Be happy with that. Be satisfied with that. And if the people around you are being good enough, cut them some slack too.
Amen.
You know,
So as you know what, we could go on and on and on. We haven't even touched what I was originally wanting to talk to you about, but time is running out for us. Let me ask you this. If you could really just share one or two thoughts that you feel would be really important for people who are listening to think about that might motivate them,
okay.
what would that be?
Okay, right here. This experience of what I've done and what I continue to do taught me two things. It taught me one thing and made me realize another thing. It taught me that I am more powerful than I ever imagined. And the thing it made me realize is that if I am more powerful than I ever imagined, so is everybody else. I am no more powerful than you. You're no more powerful than me. I am no more special than you. You are no more special than me. We are all special, each and every one of us. You are more powerful than you ever imagined. Believe it, know it, feel it. And then once you realize that you're more powerful than you ever imagined, it becomes a question of what are you going to do with that knowledge? Are you going to sit on your butt or are you going to take action?
Amen. Oh, well, that's great. That's a great message. So, Stanley, how do people find you? Because obviously you've got a number of books that they're able to download. Again, folks, I have to tell you, looking at what he has on his website, I've printed a bunch of it out. It's amazing when you talk about thewayofexcellence.com is where we go, thewayofexcellence.com. And there is so much information there as far as how to literally transform our lives. So that's great. And are all the
And
books,
it's free.
I was going to say, all the books are free, aren't they?
Yes, because
See.
it is my way of giving back. Look, I have people who work with me privately, and if people want to work with me privately, that's wonderful, but that costs money. Not everyone has money. Not everyone wants to spend money, but I want to give back to people because don't get me wrong, I love money, but the mission is more important than the money sometimes.
Yes.
What is important is that we as individuals get our lives together so that we can collectively get our lives together. We can collectively get our communities together. We can collectively get our countries together. We can get our world together. Because as crazy and as mixed up as this world is right now, it is an incredible place.
Amen to
If
that.
we would just wake up, realize that, and act upon it.
Yes. Well, Stanley, thank you so much. This has been amazing. And I look forward to chatting
welcome.
with you after we finish this recording for a bit. But anyway, folks, thank you for listening. I hope you'd enjoy this. And if I can, I'm going to get Stanley back on the show again, and we're going to actually get into the nuts and bolts of what he really has been writing about. So anyway, thanks for listening. This is Dr. Doug saying namaste.
Thank you.